Are recording. These are just going to be short, fun, easy YouTube videos. I'm going to start with what was image 0322, question number 3, market failure due to monopoly pricing. And this video is going to cover question 31, 32, and 33 because they're the only ones I can see on this page. So if you're ready to go, try to play along with me and we'll have some fun. Honestly, the only really hard question is question 31. 32 and 33 are kind of trick questions. So let's start with 31. A monopoly has a constant marginal cost. So you're not going to get that very often. When you have a constant marginal cost, the average variable cost is equal to the marginal cost. Because if it only costs $1 per unit, then 10 units essentially cost in the variable sense $10. So the average variable cost is equal to the marginal cost. So if you understand that, you understand why this question is super easy. It is not going to be often that anybody ever gives you something where the average variable cost and the marginal cost are the same. But if you're wondering, how did he know that? It's because he told me a constant marginal cost. Also, marginal cost is only $1. So if it's only $1, he doesn't give me a curve that I can draw. So I'm just going to have to assume that maybe that's $1. And there are some other numbers he gives us in this question. For example, he tells us that the fixed cost is $10. So now I know if I had to draw something like the average cost, right? The average cost. Well, unfortunately, I know the average cost of 1 is $10 because 10 divided by 1 is 10. I also technically know that the average cost of 2 is 11 divided by 2, or 10 the fixed cost plus 1 the cost to make the extra one. So I know the average cost curve slowly branches out. I could go all the way up to 3, right? Because 10 divided by 3 would be 3.3, but then those extra little costs like the 1 and 2 would probably give me a number above 3. So it's easy to tell that the average cost curve is downward sloping, and it's going to get closer and closer, and it'll just kind of stop because there will always be the difference of 1. Next, he asks me for the average variable cost, but I'm really trying to enforce here this idea that the marginal cost is equal to the marginal cost is equal to the average variable cost at every single point. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll talk about it in the video, but it's because the average variable cost of making 20 units, because it costs $1 per unit to make, is just 20 divided by 20. Then that green line was the average cost curve. I can't imagine he's going to ask you to draw the average cost curve a lot. Normally the average total cost is what you're more concerned with, but they're just about the same thing with this little information. Next, he asks us to draw, I'll draw this kind of thick, just a demand curve. Does not appear to be asking us to draw it anywhere specific, so I'm going to draw the demand curve way out here just to really exaggerate and make it far away. That's our demand curve. Then he asks us to draw, he doesn't ask us to draw, but you have to know that a monopolist has a marginal revenue curve that starts at about the same place as its demand curve and is about half the slope. So we talked about that. The one thing he didn't ask you to draw was the marginal revenue, but the marginal revenue is essential for all of the answers. So let's take this one kind of piece by piece. Show the profit maximizing quantity. Well, for a monopoly, the profit max is always where? If you say it out loud, you'll really help yourself here. It's where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost. So this is why I knew I had to draw the marginal revenue. And it looks like that point is right cha. So the profit maximizing quantity is now in the blue line. Let me switch to red so we can indicate price. It's really important you also remember that a monopolist is only concerned with the demand curve when it comes to price. So this is my profit maximizing price right there. I'll try to kind of circle it in red here, and then you understand that the profit maximizing quantity is down here. I'll try to circle it and then circle it on here. So you understand these are where the answers are coming from. Lastly, and now I'm going to have to start deleting things, they ask us to indicate the area that's a profit and show the deadweight loss. So we kind of talked about the deadweight loss just a little bit. The deadweight loss here is a bit fictitious because it's not based on a tax, but essentially people wish they could get this quantity, and because they can't, we create a true deadweight loss triangle, which is all of this area that's demanded but people can't get. So if that's the deadweight loss, it should also indicate a couple of things, namely what we're dealing with a profit situation. So the profit has to consider our average cost at that quantity. I'm going to use a really thick yellow line here, but the average cost at this quantity is going to be denoted by this yellow line. Didn't really draw it perfectly to scale. So down below here, everything that is yellow is a cost, and then hopefully you could more rapidly fill in with your sense of intuition that everything blue is a profit. So if they're asking you, hey, where's the profit? I shaded it in blue. And if they're asking you where's the cost, it's in yellow. And then the deadweight loss is what I shaded in black. Excellent. All right, so that's the answer for number 3.1. Let's go into 3.2 next. 3.2 and 3.3 are going to happen really, really fast. The reason being is they're basically the same question. If someone's asking you about a lump sum tax happens at the end of the year. And things that typically happen at the end of the year are considered a fixed cost. And anything that is a fixed cost can only really have an effect on the average total cost. And firms only use the ATC when they're making long-run decisions. Slow it down just a little bit, maybe draw out the graph, right? Price, quantity. A typical monopolist has a demand curve, a marginal revenue curve, some form of a marginal cost. But if we're talking about a lump sum tax, we're actually going to be only talking about the average total cost. And the average total cost is usually what's driven out up over here. So if the average total cost is ever above the price, which is handily what we just happen to draw here, this firm would probably set the quantity here, the price here, and look at that. The average total cost is greater than the price. That's when people make the decision to shut down. So what does that mean for this question? What is the effect on a monopoly? In the short run, it has no effect. And then it says, hint, consider the firm might shut down. Well, of course, in the long run, if the price is below the new average total cost because of a lump sum tax, the firm might shut down. Maybe your teacher is really into solving things algebraically or something like that, and he may expect you to say, well, if ATC after tax is greater than price, this would be the situation where the firm shuts down. I can't really think of any better ways to answer question number 32. So I hope that's somewhat similar to whatever the solved problem is in 11.4, but it's really worth looking up. And remember, you do kind of have to look that up on your own time. Last question is question number 33. So 33, only Native American tribes, blah, 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 it's a monopoly. The only thing that mattered to me was this word profit tax. Profit tax, profit tax. If I could hammer one thing into your head, it is that profit tax does not equal sales tax. Sales tax is the kind of thing that could shift the supply, but a profit tax, as I understand it, is a lump sum tax. And the lump sum tax does not shift the supply. A lump sum tax will only shift what? We answered it in the last question. It can only shift the average total cost. And if the average total cost after a tax is greater than the price the monopoly can charge, then and only then would a firm make a choice in the long run to shut down. But an average total cost or a profit tax or a lump sum tax can only affect the long run. All right, so we answered 3 questions. That was kind of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and this will be up on YouTube.